Hello. Hi, everyone, and happy Pride Month. I know this video is a lot of bit late, but as everyone knows, it's been paying any kind of attention. I haven't been really feeling well for a while, but I'm getting better. So, anyways, this video isn't to throw shade, point fingers, or to try and push my opinions onto other people. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, honey. Not everyone's gonna agree with me, and I'm not gonna agree with everyone, and that's okay. That's life, but I'm not gonna hate you over it, you know? So, on my real life Facebook and on my second life Facebook, I saw people make posts regarding Gay Pride Month. Uh, they would say things like, why do people bother celebrating Pride? Why do gay people need Pride Month? Why isn't there a straight Pride Month? Why is it important? Why aren't straight relationships celebrated and represented for a month out of the year? Yada, yada, yada. Cameraman, get your shit together. Thank you. So, they've said all this stuff in posts and whatnot. I also saw posts about how people saying that Pride Month is just a way for gay people to push their gayness onto other people and to try and convert straight people. No, no. And I have commented on many posts, and I've said the same thing over and over. Traditional relationships between men and women have been visible and celebrated every day in society since forever. They've been visible and celebrated, represented in movies, in advertisements, and in television shows. Pride Month is very much needed and important. Pride Month is to commemorate the Stonewall Riots that happened in June of 1969 at the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village. The goal was gay liberation to counter societal shame with gay pride. Okay? So, for me being in a straight relationship, I've never had to worry about walking down the street with my spouse, holding his hand, and having someone spit at me or try and beat us up because we chose to love each other. You know, not only do gay relationships, and sorry if I'm leaving some people out, but I have a lot to cover here. But not only do gay relationships have to deal with the problems of everyday relationships, but they also have to deal with society's bullcrap. You know? So not only are they trying to keep a healthy long-term relationship, but they're also dealing with society saying, no, this is wrong, no, this is disgusting, no, this is this, no, this is that. So, whatever. But I feel that straight relationships shouldn't be celebrated for a month out of the whole year because that's what freaking anniversaries are for. You know? So, here's a little history lesson. And you could stop watching the video here because this is going to be a bit long-winded. So let's start with Portland, the Portland Vice scandal. And that took place in Portland, Oregon in 1912. So a young guy was arrested for shoplifting and blamed a couple of old gay men for what he had done. And before you knew it, they enforced a sexual sterilization bill in Portland. So this means that if you were caught in a gay relationship, having gay relations, or even accused of being gay, they would sexually sterilize you. So, and if you don't know what sexual sterilization is, look it up, honeys. So, in 1920s, Harvard University created secret courts to out gay professors and students. And this resulted in professors losing their jobs and students being expelled. What kind of bullshit is that? Seriously. So now we're going to go into World War I. The United States Army created the Blue Discharge because there wasn't a rule set in place stating that you couldn't be gay and serve in the Army. This was their way to get rid of gay soldiers and other workers. So the Blue Discharge was used in both World War I and World War II. The GI Bill specifically eliminated people who had blue discharges from receiving any benefits from the GI Bill. Crappy, right? Straight people didn't have to go through that, did they? No, I didn't think so. So, in the roaring 20s, gay culture started to flourish, my darlings, because things were pushed under the rug because of prohibition. There were speakeasies in major cities that made it easier for gays to meet, get together, drink, dance, you get what I mean. And police couldn't interfere because they had no clue what was going on. And in 1924, ta-da, the first gay society, well, temporary gay society, called the Society for Human Rights, which was founded by Henry Gerber, an activist in Illinois. They produced pamphlets called Friendship and Freedom. Sadly, it only lasted for 1 month because some turd turned them in for being gay and everyone was arrested. After World War II, we had the explosion of the Red Scare. So homosexuals were being included on a list with communists because they were thought to be more susceptible to blackmail. And of course, there was a big gay discriminatory crap thing going on. But anyways, the State Department, the FBI, the police, hell, even the post office was tracking anyone suspected of being gay, keeping their names on that stupid list. So, between 1947 and 1950, over 4,000 people were discharged from the United States Army because they were suspected of being gay. Also, 400 state employees were also fired. So let's talk 1950. A pioneer of the gay rights movement by the name of Harry Hay. Harry Hay created the Mattachine Society. Around the same time, a lesbian society group was founded, the Daughters of Bilitis, I think it's called, the DOB. Well, they weren't including gay and lesbian in the name because they were trying to keep it on the down low. Of course, they didn't want to get found, beaten and all this other stuff, put in prison. So it was a very secretive Mason Society-like group. So there were many levels of secrecy, which back in that time was necessary. The higher you got up in the ranks, the more you knew. They battled stereotypes. They didn't like the thought of queens, cross-dressers, and transgender because they thought it was confirming those stereotypes. Where they wanted to, portray themselves as ties, suits, and dresses. So in 1965, the Mattachine Society in D.C., Andrew Frank Kearney staged the first gay protest in the United States. Protesters came dressed normal. They wore suits, dresses, in an attempt to show society that they were just like everyone else and that they were hardworking, good people. But even people in the Mattachine Society were pissed off when they saw these people protesting because they didn't believe that putting it in people's faces was the best way to get their point across or to see any movement in their protest. So now moving along to the American Psychiatric Association in 1952. They put homosexuality on a list of mental diseases. The study that they used to make the declaration was on a study of mental patients who were gay or considered to be gay. So, my opinion, if you take a lot of mental patients who are gay, you'll find they're mental patients. They're going to have mental issues. They were in there for mental issues. They're so stupid, these people. So there were advertisements and things saying that being gay could be cured. And I don't think you want to know the horror that went on in those places. Many people didn't survive those so-called cures that they had. People were basically tortured. You would have parents, bring their kids to these places and all this crazy stuff go on. Their kid comes back like a fried tomato. So Evelyn Hooker, a psychiatrist, did her own study in 1956 and released it to the American Psychiatric Association that showed that there was in fact no difference in the mental deficiencies between heterosexuals and homosexuals. the American Psychiatric Association decides to keep homosexuality on that list of diseases from 1952 to 1973. So the first Supreme Court gay case was One Inc. versus Olson in 1958. One Incorporated, also known as, One Kind of Gay, it was a magazine publication that was sent via mail in the United States, and the United States Postal Service refused to deliver it, and gays won that case. It was a landmark victory because now communication through mail was open. It was very important because then they were able to network and create larger organizations. So in 1966 there was the first act of civil disobedience. That really didn't get a lot of press. It was called the Compton Cafeteria Riots, I believe. And this was mainly the transgender community. But anywho, the restaurant workers in the establishment called the police and reported that these people in their establishment were being gay. And those gay people wanted to be served. So when the police arrived, a transgender woman threw a cup of coffee at one of the cops' faces. And then there was just complete chaos. Things were ripped up, set on fire. Compton's Cafeteria Riots didn't spread. It didn't get enough publicity, but it was a stepping stone for Greenwich Village 1960, honey. So, not sure how many of you were or are familiar with Greenwich Village, but honey, all the cool kids went there. Still do. Lots of rebels and home of the beatniks. There were gay beatniks like William Burroughs, Halens Ginsberg, who openly wrote about homosexuality in the 50s. In the early 60s, the mayor of New York, Robert Wagner, I think his name was coming down hard on a lot of bars that were serving gays. And keep in mind that these weren't gay-owned establishments. These were mob-owned bars. But because in 1964, the World Fair was coming up, the mayor, Robert Wagner, wanted to clean up the city, idiot, and make himself look good, idiot. They started entrapping people. So they threw many people in jail, idiot. Even when Mayor John Lindsay was elected, he promised to put an end to all of the harassment and all of the false imprisonments and all this other stuff. The New York State Liquor Authority was still going after bars that were serving gay people because they claimed that they couldn't give a license to any bar that was disorderly. Idiots. And because they believed homosexuals were disorderly, they weren't going to serve them, blah, 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 idiots. This led to the 1966 Julius Sip-In. So in 1966, the Mattachine Society sent 3 men into the Julius. They announced that they were homosexuals and that they wanted to be served. This wasn't radical. This wasn't crazy or disorderly. They tried to go about it in a peaceful way, I guess in the civil rights, nonviolent way. Anywho, at this point in our lesson, we visit the late 1960s, the Stonewall Inn on Christopher Street. It was mob-owned, honey. It was owned by the Genovese family, I think it's called. And everyone knew it was a gay bar in the city, but it didn't have a liquor license, and the place wasn't in the best of conditions. No fire exits, toilets overflowing. Hello, the mob owned it. All they cared about was making money. They didn't care about the upkeep. They just wanted to keep it running so they could make their money. So this place was, the Genovese family was paying off the cops weekly to keep this place going. But then, crap happened. So, anyways, they were paying off the cops. They got raided every month, but they were being tipped off by the police before the raids would happen, So There are many different reasons why people think the cops went to close a Stonewall Inn on June 28th, 1969, but popular opinion was that the mob was making more money blackmailing the patrons of the Stonewall Inn, doctors, lawyers, and stockbrokers, you get what I mean. And the mob didn't want to give any kickbacks to the police, any extra money to the police. So the police grew tired of the Genovese family, and they made an unannounced raid on June 28th, 1969 at around 1:20 in the morning. So normally during the raids, there was this peephole, and you couldn't get in unless the bouncer recognized you, through that hole. So, the bouncer wouldn't let you in if he didn't recognize you or he didn't think that you were gay. But when the police got to that door that night, they just said, "Hey, it's the police," and rammed the door down. And it was odd because normally they would line everyone up and ask for identification. And if you didn't have identification, or if you were a man wearing women's clothing or a woman wearing men's clothing, you would get arrested. But that day, nothing went right that night, honey. Nothing went right. Police harassing lesbians and touched them when they shouldn't have been. Some of the transgender patrons started talking back. Men refused to show their identification. The patrol wagons hadn't gotten there yet. So they were lining people up. There were like 150 people at that point, 200 people at that point, 300, whatever. But there was a crowd of like about 300 people outside, and those numbers were growing. Mind you, this wasn't planned. Tensions were growing. So there was a lesbian by the name of Stormy Delavery, and she was being arrested, and the cops were bringing her to the car. She looked at the crowd and yelled, "Why don't you guys do something?" And boy, oh boy, that was when everything popped off. The place erupted. Stones and coins were being thrown at the police. The police started to back away from the large 200, 300 something mob of gay people. They pushed them back into the bar, and the police had to retreat. They had to go, and they grabbed a few folks that they had managed to get their hands on, including David Van Ronk, who was a famous folk singer. He wasn't gay, but because he was a member of the community and protest community. And suddenly he's in the bar with 10 cops stuck inside, as a mob outside is breaking windows, trying to get in there, burning trash, putting into the windows. People outside managed to rip a meter out of the ground and use it as a battering ram to break the door down. So now picture it. They're backed up into the bar. The tactical police force gets there. By the time it's a full-on blown-out riot, right? Transgender women lined the streets as tactical police force got there. And these girls started doing little rocket kick line while shouting some song or a chant. I forgot what it was, but I guess the police didn't like it very much because the cops took out their batons and started cracking people over the head. There were so many people there, possibly 1,000. I think the cops are trying to run around and arrest folks. Even more people came rioting, burning, flipping over cop cars. So from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., this was going on. About 4 a.m., it started to simmer down. The following night, people started to get there early. They were spray painting walls next to the Stonewall Inn with gay pride messages, and the police came back, and there was another riot. It was 4 hours of chasing people around, people getting beat up. It rained for a couple of days. That was a Monday and Tuesday, I believe. So the Village Voice, after this, the Village Voice had printed an anti-gay slant on the Stonewall Riot story, and about 1,000 people showed up, at the Village Voice offices, threatening to burn them down, close them down. Then that Wednesday night, there was one more night of riots, and that was it. After that, gay people in that area were not going to be put back into the closet. They were not going to hide anymore. And after the Stonewall Riots, we started to get the first organizations with gay in their titles. So you had the Gay Liberation Front and the Gay Activist Association that were not going to take that were going to take a more aggressive role in trying to change what was going on with gay discrimination in the United States. They would show up in reporters' faces and ask them questions about gay rights and things like that. But what really made this all memorable was a year later. And that was June 28th, 1970, where we had the first gay pride parade in New York City. Yay! And then by the next year, it was spreading across the country. And then we really finally had a gay rights movement. So I hope this gave some of you an education if you didn't know about even half of this. But please remember, you don't have to be gay to help others celebrate Pride Month. Lift others up, not drag them down. Don't feel left out because you're not gay and it's Gay Pride Month. There's no reason for that. I don't look at, Black History Month and think, oh shit, why do they get a whole month? No. You know what those people had to go through? Those human beings had to endure a lot, and so have gay people and other people of color. And, I think it's kind of rude to a degree to look at that and be like, and not even research what these people have been through and just say, oh, well, they don't deserve a month. Honey, you've never been woken up in the middle of the night and been dragged out of bed by the police, watched your lover be beaten to death, all because you're gay. You haven't had to experience trying to hide from the police because it's illegal to be gay. These people go through so much. You gotta lift each other up. You can't just think, oh, it's about me, me, me. Why don't I get this? Come on now. Come on now. But anyways, I know I'm late, but happy Pride Month. And I love you all, gay, straight, trans. I love you all, and I just hope that we learn to be more accepting of each other, that we lift each other up instead of tear each other down. I hope that when we don't understand things, we could ask honest questions and be educated without getting an attitude or being hateful about it, But anyways, I love your faces, and I will see you guys soon. Toodles!